Hi everyone, I'm Aubrey Whitfield and today we're going to take a look at the Soothe 2 plugin from Oeksound. Now, this plugin I think is absolutely brilliant. It is one of the very few plugins that can just make everything sound silky smooth. It's just got that wow magic factor in it. But what I've found, which is quite interesting, is that people either love this plugin and use it all the time, or people buy this plugin I can't really hear the difference. And I think that's because sometimes some of the results of Soothe 2 are quite subtle, and to the untrained ear it might not be as obvious exactly what it's doing. But if you kind of understand how the plugin works and what it can do for your mixes, then I think you'll be in the fan club like I am. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share the screen. We're going to take a look at the plugin. We'll go over some of the key controls and we'll just have a look at it in action. And then hopefully you can go away and use that to really improve your mixes by smoothing things out, making things sound softer, just clearer. I mean, you know, it's Soothe. It's called Soothe for a reason. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to hop right onto this thing. So here we are in Logic Pro. And what I'm going to do is load up Soothe 2 from Oeksound. Here we go. Check out their other plugin, Bloom, actually. That's really good as well. So what I'm going to do is click on their built-in preset called Flat Start, because it's just a very, very good starting point. Now, what I'm going to do is just got this glockenspiel here, which is known for real harsh sounding resonances. So I will just take the volume all the way down and I'll be able to talk over it, but you'll be able to see what's happening. So if we just start playing. So I just go like that. So the thing is with Soothe 2 is that you may think there's a bit of a learning curve to it, but actually it gets started pretty quickly, and that's because it's got some really intelligent algorithm built into it that will remove these harsh sounding resonances from your instruments or your mix, as you can see that it's doing here with these kind of white gaps. Now, this works differently to an EQ, and it might be confusing at first because this does look like an EQ plugin. I mean, at the top here, we have got the different frequencies of the frequency spectrum. So, you know, we go all the way down here from 20 Hertz all the way up here, just off the screen, to 20 kilohertz, which is the human listening range and the frequency ranges that you would typically find in an EQ plugin. But it works slightly differently. For a start off, if there are problems like nasty sounding resonances in this glockenspiel, which there always is in this kind of percussive instrument, then what happens is, rather than boosting the frequency here, which you would be doing in an EQ plugin, we're actually reducing it. The plugin is actually softening and removing those harsh resonances. Now, a resonance is more like a ringing sound. So with that glockenspiel, or think of a bell, when you hit it, it has that horrible ring to it that really like grates on you. Same with like if you've got a guitar and you let a electric guitar that's distorted ring out, it's got this like ringing sound to it that's just really nasty. That is a resonance. And this is the difference with Soothe 2. Soothe 2 will remove those most prominent resonances rather than cutting or reducing the whole frequency. Okay, whereas if you were using a static EQ and you were to let's just say this is an EQ, you were to cut around here at 4 kilohertz, you would be cutting all of these frequencies that fall here, right? But with Soothe 2 you are just removing the harsh resonances that are in this frequency band, and that's what makes it different. So you can get started really easily with this plugin. All you need to do is load it up, as I said, go to Flat Start, start playing your instrument, and then whack up the depth. Start in soft mode. There is soft mode and there's hard mode, but soft mode is the best option because hard mode can really destroy the sound, as you can see there. But it is needed sometimes hard mode. If you're not getting the result that you need, switch over to hard mode, or if it's a particularly nasty sounding instrument or vocal that you're working on, you might need to go for hard. But as default, start in the soft mode. So yeah, you just start playing, whack up the depth, which is basically how much you are applying, and it starts working automatically. You don't even need to do anything. So you can see here it's working without me doing much. If we bring in the volume, so what you could do here as a guide is you could load up an EQ plugin. Sometimes this can be helpful to look at where the problematic frequencies are for a start. So we play it. So typical with these kind of instruments, we're going to have these harsh spikes. So we can see there 1.6 kilohertz, 5.6 and 11 kilohertz. These are really starting to pop out. But of course, those frequencies that are popping out over here are what makes this glockenspiel sound like a glockenspiel. So if I were to cut these frequencies on this EQ plugin, I might be removing all the good stuff. Well, all I want to do is remove the harsh part of those frequencies. So that's where Soothe 2 can come in handy. I can use Soothe 2 to soften and soothe those harsh frequencies without removing all of the content from that band. So that's why it's got this unique selling point. So 1.6 kilohertz. So if we go over here, and we can go over to about 1.6, as you can see up here, and then we can boost. So I know it feels like counterintuitive, but this is me reducing the resonances. I'm not boosting anything. And you can see here, if I click on each of the different bands that are available, you can see down here the colours are changing depending on what band I'm clicking on. So with the yellow, I can change the frequency this way, or the sensitivity, which is basically how much of the cut we're applying. The Q, which is the quality factor, just like it is in EQ. This is how narrow or how wide we want it. So with this glockenspiel, it'll be quite narrow. Bearing in mind the Soothe 2 does quite narrow suppression anyway. This isn't a broad soothing tool. It's quite narrow, so it's worth bearing that in mind. So we'll do that. Now, I've got it on bell filter, which is the default. If we need to, we could change it to shelf, low shelf, high shelf, a band shelf, a band reject, so completely just like carving something out, and a tilt, which I haven't had the pleasure of using in Soothe 2 as of yet, not felt that I've needed it. So bell is kind of the standard go-to, as you can imagine. So just by doing this, now I need to kind of control the depth by how much of this frequency I want to remove. So you can hear it working already. So with the depth at -18, then listen when I go up with the depth and listen to how it starts soothing. But listen, it's still got the good stuff. It's still got that frequency there that makes it sound like a glockenspiel. It just sounds a bit softer. And that's the beauty of it. So I'm just going to put the depth around here for now. Let's see what it sounds like on hard. Not much difference at the moment. That happens sometimes. It depends what you're working on. But we're going to keep it on soft. Now we have these other kind of global controls down here as well. So we have the sharpness. Now the sharpness determines basically how deep and how narrow these resonances are going to be cut. So I'll show you, because it kind of changes the shape down here. So if we go for hardly any sharpness, you can see how they're quite broad as we go round. So you can hear already how the sound has changed by having an extremely sharp resonance cut. Like, that is detrimental. So very rarely will you see me with a sharpness all the way over here. My sharpness tends to be somewhere between 5 and 0.23, somewhere like that. Somewhere usually around here, the 2 or 3 mark. So yeah, just looking like that. Of course, use your ears. It's the best thing to do in any of these scenarios. Then we have the selectivity, and this does what it says on the tin. So selectivity is basically how selective it's going to be in removing these resonances. So the higher selectivity that we have, it's going to be more selective, or the lower selectivity, it's going to cut everything. So we go over here to naught, and then we go over here. You can see it doesn't have a lot of difference in the sound, and that's because this isn't a particularly powerful instrument at the minute. But if we go all the way up here, it's actually doing more narrow work than over here. And again, same thing with the sharpness, with selectivity. I tend not to go too much because I find it's just a bit detrimental, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. So again, you tend to find somewhere on the left here from like 12 o'clock down to here, about 7 o'clock. So I'll put it about here for now. Now we also have attack and release up here, which do what you might think. So, an attack basically determines how quickly Soothe 2 is going to remove these resonances once the sound starts, how quickly it reacts to the sound. And then the release is the opposite, how quickly the resonances will be released once the sound has stopped. So again, I tend to find that usually a fast, luckily it says here fast or slow, but it works just like a compressor attack and release with, fast on the left and slow on the right. But don't think of this like compressor controls. I just find that in Soothe 2, fast attack and fast release tend to work best. But let's just see the differences. You can see here how quick it reacts. The slow, look, hardly moving. Whereas fast, look, more dynamic, moving a bit more. So again, a fast attack is probably best in these kind of scenarios. Unless you wanted something really gentle and subtle, then a slower attack might be best. So I'm going to put it on a 3 attack. And then the release, let's have a look. So we've got a fast release and a slow release. And again, just look at how much it's suppressed down here. If we go over here to fast, it's more dynamic. It's moving up and down a bit more. It's got a bit more of a vibe to it. So again, if you had a slow attack and a slow release, it would be quite a subtler result if we listen. So slow, so gentle. Not a huge detriment to the sound, but it's a glockenspiel, it's not a massive drum bus. If we move the attack and the release, just gives, I find that doing it with the fast attack and release, it's removing the harshest resonances in a more dynamic way. Sometimes if it's too slow, it doesn't kind of mold and attack and release that sound quick enough before it goes on to the the next note. So for me, having an attack and release broadly fast to medium tends to work well on most material. Now it might be, if you're working on vocals or something like that, that it might sound a bit too processed sometimes, and if that's the case, you can blend in the mix here. This is kind of like parallel processing. So if you went down to 50% here, that would be parallel processing essentially, because you will have 50% of the original dry sound and you'll have 50% of Soothe 2. So you're blending the both, so you got the best of both worlds. And you can do that if you think it just sounds a bit too processed and you want to kind of dial it back a bit. But most of the time, 100% does the trick. Now with trim, this basically acts as the makeup gain like it would on a compressor, because of course by doing quite heavy resonance suppression, you can actually lose volume in the instrument. Now this doesn't work like a compressor does, where we're losing tons and tons of volume in this plugin. It doesn't work like that. The volume loss is actually quite subtle, And a lot of the time the trim will just stay at 0 dB. However, if you're really pushing up a lot of cuts, then you might notice there is a slight dip in volume. You know, you can basically add the volume back. If you start going up here, you will notice the degrading of the sound. So most of the time for me, I'm doing like 1, maximum 2 dB trim, you know, 0.5, just subtle amounts, just to add things back. And then we've got the delta button here, and this is pretty cool. This will allow us to hear the difference in what this plugin is doing. So if we do this, so that is basically what is being removed. So it's good sometimes to just hear the result of what it's actually doing and just confirm that it is removing the nastiest stuff that you don't want in that frequency. So where else did we have on here? So we had also, okay, about 6.6 so as well. So we'll do another one over here. So we'll go to a different band and we'll go to 6.6. We'll go for the Q and again make it fairly narrow. And we'll just take this up a little bit. And this just, again, will continue to soften things. I'm going to widen it a bit, just looking at that. And then what we can also do, you'll notice at the far left and the far right here, we have a low cut and we have a high cut. So basically our high pass filter and our low pass filters, and they do act like a normal EQ. So if they are deactivated by default. So we turn it on down here, which you can do in any band actually. If you select that band, you can turn off that band by clicking on the circle there. But these pass filters are off by default. So we turn them on and we go up to the frequencies. So on something like a glockenspiel, you don't need a lot of sound in the low end. You know, it could muddy up a mix. So we will do a high pass filter of let's say 200 hertz, which is quite high, but I think that's going to do the trick. Let's just do 201. And then we've got the Q. So you can see there, just straightening it out or doing more of a severe cut. So again, cleaning up the low end, and that does act like a typical EQ in that way. And they can be handy to help clear up the sound. Now, the other thing that we can do is we do have mid-side capabilities, which is pretty cool. So if you see here at mode, it's on left or right, which is basically stereo. If we click on this, we go into mid-side mode. So this wouldn't be an example per se, glockenspiel, but it might be you've got a kick. In fact, let's go and try a kick drum and see if we can improve the sound by applying Soothe 2. Okay, so let's load up the plugin. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to click on flat start for now. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just bring in the depth. I have to bring in a lot of depth to get a result here. So interestingly, if we go into hard mode, you can hear how bad that's destroyed the kick. So, but going back a bit, you can see now I can actually get some of the resonances removed in the low end, which is typically what you'd want on a kick. I mean, this is not a deep sounding kick, so there wouldn't be a lot of muddiness per se. But what we can do with mid-side mode is we can actually remove the resonances from the mid channel or the sides. And in terms of mid-side, I mean, it's a whole other tutorial, but think of the sides as the very left of a stereo signal and the very right, and the mid as the mono information in the center. So for example, with this kick, what we could do is just say there's a bit of boom in the low frequencies. We could go up like this. We can turn mode on here to mid-side. We make sure that yellow is selected, and we can see here it's currently on even. when you kind of process anything in the low end, it can be beneficial to make sure that everything's mono in terms of the kick and the bass. So we could just here remove the nasty resonances from the mid, which is where most of the energy is. And we just click, and you can see here, we can go to only mid, or we can go to only side, or we could do a little bit, which is what I like about this. You don't have fully on the side or fully in the mid. You can go part way, which makes it even more intricate. But we'll do like fully mid like that. So now we're only removing the resonances from the mid. We'll just adjust the attack and release. So this can be good for removing mud, really, from the low end. As I said, this kick's okay, it's quite clicky, but that's the other thing, we're going to remove the click. So again, don't be afraid to use your EQ as a visual guide if you are learning, to see where there might be some problem frequency areas. I mean, this kick is quite full. It's right across the frequency spectrum. That is going to do a lot of masking with other instruments, particularly vocals and things like that, which is where you could use the sidechain function. So maybe here at around 2.2, between 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3 kilohertz. There's a lot of kick here, which is a bit too prominent. So what we could do is we'll do quite a severe suppression, just to kind of get an idea of how this works. We'll adjust the Q. We're staying in hard mode, but yeah, soft's better, isn't it? Listen, that hard, it's too hollow. Soft, we've got a bit of beef back. So we'll just do this. Okay, sharpness and selectivity. So you can see if I went hardly sharp, we really want it to be a bit sharper to remove some of these little frequencies. And selectivity again, if we went down there all the way to over there, we want it to be a bit selective, but not like non-selective. So we'll put it kind of midway. We will keep this here on even, which is basically stereo left and right. The other thing we could do if we had a particularly wide sounding kicks, because some kicks are quite wide, is we can do a shelf suppression. So if we go here on the super high frequencies, say between 10 kilohertz up to 20, so here 10 at the top, and we're going to turn this into a high shelf. Let's do I mean, this is quite drastic, but just so you can hear it. And then we go down here on the purple, and we are going to go to the sides. Okay, so we go only mid or sides. So now we are just removing basically suppressing the super high airy frequencies on the sides, and that again makes sure that the low end of this kick has those mid frequencies kind of focused in the center. So we can do a bypass. So in bypass mode at the minute. Okay. I'm going to take that up a bit just so you can hear it. So I'm actually going to turn the plug-in on and off. So plug-in off, and then I'll turn it on. Let's just listen to the difference. And what the aim is here is to soothe the kick, clean it up a bit, give it a bit more tightness, a bit more clarity. That's what we're aiming for, without that click in the top end being too prominent, because that click between 2 to 4 kilohertz there will clash with vocals, guitars and pianos that are in that area, but particularly the vocals. So just creating space for the vocals to sit. So plug it on, then I'll turn it on. Plug it off, then I'll turn it on. So this is it off. Okay, here we go. So it's lost a little bit of its boom, and subjectively you might not want that, you might like that boom. It's completely genre dependent, it's completely mix dependent, but it's just showing you what it can do and how the plugin works. You know, go for the sound and carve out the sound that you want and you like. I personally find that it's particularly brilliant on vocals. I mean, it just adds this sound to it, right? that makes vocals sound pro. I don't know what it is or how it does it. Like, it's pretty cool. So I want to demonstrate that because I think probably vocals is one of the biggest uses of this plugin for me, I would say, as well as pianos and guitars, which have a lot of ringy type stuff. So just going to turn off some of my EQ and crazy effects that we've got going on this track. This is a track that I actually did for BMG. So yeah, it's out now. So Soothe 2, and this is what I used on it, is a vocal de-esser. This singer is brilliant, but has like a lot of prominent S's, sibilants, and rather than using a de-esser plugin, which sometimes can affect the quality of the vocal audio in the rest of the track where there aren't harsh S's, Soothe 2 is much more natural, organic sound, I find. Let's see if we can hear the difference to what I've done here. Let me turn up the volume again. So what we're going to do here is use soft mode on vocals, because hard would just destroy the lovely tone in the vocal.
Something strange is happening. Something strange is
So listening to the strange, listen to the S without this plugin on. So when she sings strange,
something strange is happening. Something strange is happening.
Unpleasant, particularly once the compression goes on and everything, and those S's become real prominent. And then let's turn it on.
Something strange is happening.
So I'm going to do a before and after now without me talking in between, so you can compare like for like. So, and if we just actually make it a bit more dramatic. Okay, so here we go, off and then on.
Something strange is happening. Something strange is happening. Something strange is happening. Something strange is happening.
You can see there as I take the depth up, it removes even more. So again, off.
Something strange is happening. Something strange is happening.
Once it starts getting a bit lispy like that, you've applied too much processing, so just ease back a little bit. But yeah, this is great for sibilants, and it's, you know, probably my go-to for it. But there's so much you can do. You know, I've got a preset pack for Soothe 2 actually, that all these presets are taken from my own projects that I've worked on over the last few years and that work well for me. Of course, a caveat with any presets is that they are a good starting point to kind of, you know, get a good sound quickly, but of course you have to tweak it to the source material. So if we go to vocals, and we've got like the silky pop vocals, these can be pretty nice. So we just click on that. It's a very, very simple curve, this one.
Something strange is happening.
And what I'm going to do is just kind of adapt this. So we'll turn on the low cut. For female vocals, we can apply a high pass filter probably up to 90 hertz. So we'll do that.
Something strange is happening right now.
So you can hear plosives on a vocal.
Something strange is happening.
So they can be a bit problematic. So we can turn this band on.
Something strange.
You can see here I've got my mix on 80% to kind of reduce the processing sound, but let's just take that up to 100.
Something strange is happening right. Something strange is happening right now. In darkness we are grappling. Something strange is happening.
See how the plosive has now improved.
Something strange is happening.
So
Something strange is happening. Something strange is happening.
I mean, that sounds like it's lost a bit of body and low end, so you know that'd be a bit too much for me personally, but you can see how it can remove plosives as well.
Something strange is happening right now. In darkness we are grappling.
Okay.
Around.
So it's also good for removing a nasal vocal sound, a boxiness. The boxiness you tend to get here between 250 to 500 hertz on vocals. So you can remove any of that stuff really. Yeah, so there's a deboxy vocal. So if someone's recorded, in a untreated room, chart pop vocal polish.
Something strange is happening right now. In darkness we are grappling.
Okay, off.
Something strange is happening right now. In darkness we are grappling around. It's something strange.
So it's got rid of some of that breathiness, which is all very well having that in modern pop. It's quite popular, but it can sound a bit harsh, as I said, particularly once the compressors go on. So if you listen to chart vocals, they do have a lot of top end in them, but they are also quite polished and quite smooth. And so what you can do is you can use your EQ plugin first in the chain. Not on this lady's vocals because she has a lot of harsh frequencies here. But what you could do to get that airy sound, if we go to clean, is you can boost a high shelf filter here at around 10 to 20 kilohertz, like that. This is where the air frequencies sit, and that will give the vocal that high end sparkle and sheen. Also a little boost between 4 to 5 kilohertz, like that. And you could put that first in your vocal chain. That's what I do, and then you add on Soothe 2 after it to kind of tame it a little bit, and then bring in that polish and that smoothness.
Something strange is happening.
Let's just
right now. In darkness we are grappling around. It's something strange.
So let's turn it off.
Something strange is happening
Quite harsh sounding.
right now. In darkness we are grappling.
On.
Something strange is happening
Beautiful.
right now. In darkness we are grappling.
So you can see there I started with my preset chart pop vocal polish, which is kind of vaguely in the right area, and then I've moved it around and tweaked it to fit this actual vocal, and that's how you work with presets. So look, this is Soothe 2 in a nutshell really. The only other function really is Sidechain, which said you can go up here and you can connect it to another instrument, and then you just click on here Sidechain. So it could be that this vocal is clashing with the piano or an acoustic guitar or a synth that happens to sit in the same frequency area. Let's say it's at 2 to 4 kilohertz. So you could go put this on the least important instrument of the two. Of course, the vocals will always be more important. So you would put this, say, on the piano or the guitar. You would go up to the sidechain, and then you would connect it to the vocals, like that, for example. And then you select that to activate the sidechain. And then whenever, if you put this as flat and you go like this, so whenever these harsh resonances come up at 2 to 4, it will be ducked by the vocal. So when the vocal starts singing, these harsh frequencies on the piano or the acoustic guitar or the synth will suppress, and that creates this space for the vocal to sit in. And that is what it's kind of well known for, Soothe 2. It has very, very strong sidechain capabilities. So have a go at doing that. Use the sidechain capability when there is masking going on in your mix. So where two or more instruments sit in the same frequency range and they are clashing, masking each other, and your mix has lost definition. The only other thing to talk about quickly is this quality section here. So if you are mixing instruments which are quite, well, naturally quite harsh sounding, let's just say high frequency instruments, so like saw synths or cymbals, hi-hats, maybe high-pitched female vocals, electric guitars, all that have their core fundamental frequencies up here. They can be most affected by processing. And with Soothe 2, so, it can cause some artifacts, some, unsavory effects in the vocal. So what you can do to kind of counteract that is go to oversample, and you can click ×2 or ×4, and it will basically overcome that, so you retain the clarity of the original sound that you've been working on. Now, of course, the downside to this is oversampling can be a CPU hogger, so you don't want to push it too much, because otherwise your computer might just flip out. So just be aware of that. I don't use oversample on everything. I wouldn't use it on a kick, I wouldn't use it on a bass, I wouldn't necessarily use it on an acoustic guitar. It depends, but I would use it on a prominent synth part. I would use it on a whole mix. So if this is going on the mix bus and I want to attain whole clarity of that mix, then an oversample of 2 and a resolution of high might work well. And you've just got to go through these and see which works. But to be honest, with the resolution, most of the time I'm just on normal. So that is Soothe 2, my friends. It is, as I've said, a wonderful plugin. Some of the results can be subtle, but that's sometimes subtle is all that you need in these mixes. And if you can't hear the result of what you're doing, but you can see the waveform is all over the place, just whack up the controls, push everything as hard as it can, just so you can hear what's happening, and use that delta function as well, and that will also kind of highlight exactly what it's doing. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Please do check out my Instagram, where I publish loads of tips and tricks on mixing and producing. Also check out my online store, aubreywhitfield.com/store, where you'll find online courses, masterclasses, preset packs, one for Soothe 2, FabFilter Pro Q3, etc., guides, all kinds of things that will help you develop your mixing skills. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I will speak and see you all soon. Take care.